In 1984, a studio executive commissioned a British composer by the name of John Addison to write the music for a new TV show. It was about a middle-aged woman by the name of Jessica Fletcher who wrote mystery novels, mostly on an old manual Royal typewriter. She typed at incredible speed because she was always against deadlines. When she wasn't typing, she was bouncing here and there all over the world solving mysteries on her own. Invariably, she'd end up in a haunted lighthouse or a dark basement, coming across murder victims who, for the most part, were not very likable people, and solving the crime by finding the killer, who, for the most part, was unforgettable. But the show always ended on a happy, upbeat note, with a big smile on her face, but she was happiest when she could type the end on her final draft of the next novel and pull it out of the typewriter. So how did the composer get all that information across musically in a 47-second credit opener? I have no idea. I've never met the composer John Addison, and I'll never have an opportunity of meeting him since he passed away December of 1998. But I do know that he won an Emmy for his efforts in composing the music for Murder, She Wrote. So what I would like to do is take the time to analyze musically what was written for Murder, She Wrote. See if we can more or less get into the head of the composer. But first, I think we should probably listen to the song. Well, let's go over to the grand, I'll play it for you, and then we'll move into the studio and start analyzing the music. Okay, let's give it a go. Okay, let's go in the studio and we'll talk about it. Well, for the record, there's nothing that I can play on the piano that would conjure up an image for you. For example, I can't play something and then you immediately think, oh, that's a spare tire or a moonbeam. Now, once the thought or image is placed in your mind, then the music can come in and enhance those images and thoughts. So this is the problem that faced our composer, John Addison, when he started the opening credits. It starts with Angela Lansbury typing up a storm on a manual typewriter, and he's now got to produce the opening sequence that's going to make that work with the typewriter. Well, of course, first of all, he has to choose a key that he's going to play in. I have no idea why he picked C, but perhaps it was because it seems to be a brighter key than, say, E flat or A flat. The next thing he would need to pick is a chord progression. So he opted for a very simple opening chord progression. He started off on a 1 chord, a C chord, went to a D minor chord, the 2 chord, and over to the 5 chord, the G7, and then back to the 1 chord, around again with a slight variation. Now some of you may not realize, but the old manual typewriters had this real clicking, clacking action, especially when the shaft with the letter hit the paper. Sometimes they would rub off against each other, creating more noise. He obviously decided to get that across by using dissonance. He used a half tone kind of dip down and up. Now his thought, of course, is when to bring that in. He could have brought it in on the first beat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. He might have considered bringing it in on the upbeat, just before the third and the first beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. But actually he opted for the second beat, kind of a nice compromise in between the two. Not as strong as the first and the third, but still on the beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Then the counter melody to go with that. Starts off on a quarter note rest so that the counter melody starts exactly on the dissonant. 1 and 2 and 3. Now a very sharp dissonant. Boy, it doesn't get more worse than that. And the interval of a seventh. So you can hear there's quite a lot of dissonance in that. Now interestingly, when it moves up to speed, I don't know who was chasing who. Was Angela Lansbury chasing the music or the music chasing Angela Lansbury on the typewriter? But when it moves quickly, the brain does not get an opportunity to register exactly what's going on. You don't really get an opportunity to hear those sharp dissonants, but you know there's something off. Then he moves on to the rest of the melody using an old standard chord progression that probably goes back to almost 100 years. 1, 6, 2, 5. Now he uses a deceptive cadence into the 6th chord. And instead of using the 2-5, he uses some tonicization, secondary dominance, a 5 on the 5 chord. He uses a D7. Quite a bit different then. Doesn't have quite the energy. Of course, you get the energy with that tritone between the F sharp and the C. And to enhance the bounce in her walk, again, he takes advantage of that second beat by using accented notes. And a 1, drag, 2, 3, 4, 1, crush. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then he uses the old chromatic dip for continuity and continues on. Okay, so now at this point it's got to get into the bridge. So he does just a diatonic down the C scale into what chord? Well, interestingly, he picks an A flat chord. One might have thought because this is the part in the opening credits where Jessica Fletcher is going with a flashlight into some not too happy places. You might have thought he'd gone to a minor chord, as in kind of gives you a feeling of danger. Or he could have gone perhaps into a D flat chord. But no, he opted for the A flat. The A flat chord we use in major a lot. We just kind of grab it from the Aeolian minor mode. It's the 6th chord in C minor. But we use it in major a lot, and it's a very flexible chord. It can go immediately back to the tonic, or it can drop to the 5 and then push back to the tonic chord. But once he decides on the flat 6th chord, the A flat chord, he decides to use equal parallel harmony, and he breaks it into 1.5 tones. So from an A flat to B, and up another 1.5 tones to D, which of course is the outline of an A flat diminished, which gives you that kind of spooky feeling. But he disguises that very, very nicely. So let's just follow through with what he does. So he walks up through the A flat chord, the dominant, the E flat, the 5 of that, and then up 1.5 tones into B, to, and the same thing up to the dominant. Now he does a very interesting thing here. He goes up another 1.5 tones into D, but he puts it into a first inversion with a 3rd at the bottom. And he goes between the major and the minor, which confuses the listener all to heck because they haven't a clue if it's major or minor, and he's going back and forth down to the tonic, up 4 to G minor, down through the G minor triad, and then he does the same thing on B flat, going between the major 3rd and the minor 3rd, down the tonic and up to E flat, which is the flat 6 of G, so there's no problem with it going back to the 5 chord, then into the main theme again. Substantive cadence, 5 of 5, chromatic dip, and takes it on home. And then he closes with another parallel harmony, but this time it's diatonic. It sticks strictly to the key, no dissonance. 4 down to 2. Down to 3, 6 down to 4, and finishes. So when you put it in perspective, he bounces off of this, but there's no sharp dissonance. And there it takes you through the whole process. Jessica Fletcher has finished her last draft. She's a happy camper. And there's some Emmy Award music for Murder, She Wrote. Hope you enjoyed my tutorial. I don't know how the composer came up with that, but I certainly love taking you through the process. Take care. We'll talk to you again. Bye for now.